Imagine this. You boot up your console, ready to revisit a world you've spent hundreds of hours in. You paid for the game. You paid for the season pass years ago. You own every single piece of content on your hard drive. But when you load your save, the game tells you that you don't own it anymore. Your textures are purple. Your items are gone. The store page asks you to pay again for content you bought 6 years ago. Then you switch to another Bethesda title, hoping for stability, only to find you can't even log in to access the single-player mods you paid for, because a server for a single player game is down. This isn't a horror story. This is what Bethesda is currently doing to its most loyal customer base. What you're about to witness is one of the most baffling cases of self-sabotage and technical negligence in gaming history. This isn't just a glitch, it's a systemic failure of entitlements, authentication, and monetization. We are looking at a scenario where a billion-dollar company effectively stole digital goods from PlayStation users, locked paid content behind broken servers, and then had the audacity to ask for $30 for a bundle of skins that cost more than the game they are based on. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how Bethesda turned a legacy of goodwill into a cautionary tale of anti-consumer practices. Most coverage of the recent updates focuses on the frame rates or the ultra-wide support. That is surface level. We are going deeper. We are investigating the next-gen update disaster specifically on PlayStation, where thousands of users lost access to their paid DLC. We are investigating the Creation Club authentication loop that renders paid mods useless. And we are dissecting the economics of the Mojave bundle for Fallout 76. Let's break down what happened, why it matters, and what it means for the future of digital ownership. Let's establish the facts. This is not about hate. I love these worlds. But love does not mean blindness. When a company breaks the fundamental transaction of commerce, you pay money, you keep the product, we have to speak up. This isn't just about Fallout 4. This is a case study in how the gaming industry is changing, and not for the better. We are seeing a trend where the update is no longer about improvement. It is about disruption. It is about breaking the existing ecosystem to introduce new monetization hooks. And in the process, they trampled over the very people who kept these games alive for the last decade. Let's start with the most egregious issue, the PlayStation entitlement failure. Imagine playing a game for 9 years, owning the season pass since 2016. The next-gen update arrives. Bethesda promises stability and higher resolutions. On paper, it sounded great. But here's the reality for thousands of PlayStation 5 users. Upon updating, players found that their DLCs, specifically Automatron, Wasteland Workshop, and Far Harbor, had vanished. Not deleted from the drive, but revoked from the account license. The game loaded, but textures were missing, replaced by that infamous eye-searing purple static. Why did this happen? Because the update altered the ID codes for the DLC on the PlayStation backend. The store no longer recognized the Season Pass license as a valid key for the individual DLC items. Think about this for a moment. You paid for a product. The merchant comes into your house, takes it off the shelf, and says, "Sorry, I changed the barcode, so you have to buy it again." And that is exactly what the store asked players to do. For weeks, players with the Season Pass saw a price tag next to the DLC they already owned. If they wanted to fix their save files immediately, they were being asked to pay double. Here's the kicker. This wasn't a universal bug. It specifically targeted the licensed pool of users who claimed the game via the PS Plus collection or owned specific digital bundles. It created a caste system of ownership where some licenses were valid and others were arbitrarily voided by a patch meant to improve the experience. The silence was deafening. Support tickets were met with automated responses telling users to restore licenses, a function that does nothing when the vendor side has broken the link. This isn't just a bug, it is a failure of database management that borders on theft. When you shift from physical media to digital licenses, the only guarantee the consumer has is that the database will remember them. Bethesda broke that trust. They broke the database. And for weeks, they let players sit in a broken world, purple textures flashing, asking for more money to fix a problem Bethesda created. This suggests one of two things. Either they didn't test the upgrade path for millions of PlayStation Plus users, which is incompetence, or they didn't care enough to delay the patch until the entitlement structure was verified. Neither is acceptable. What makes this truly insulting is the lack of urgency. If there was a bug that allowed players to get the DLC for free, you can bet that server would have been taken offline within the hour. But when the bug prevents paid customers from accessing their property, the fix takes weeks. It reveals a priority system where revenue protection is instant, but consumer protection is optional. Section 2. The Creation Club Authentication Loop. Now, let's move from the content you bought to the system that delivers it, the Creation Club. For years, we've debated the ethics of paid mods. But let's set the philosophy aside and look at the functionality. You pay real money for credits. You use those credits to buy a virtual item, a gun, a backpack, a skin. But here's what happens when the infrastructure crumbles. Since the update, and arguably long before, users have been plagued by the operation could not be completed error or the infinite initializing loop. Here's the critical insight. These are single-player games. Skyrim, Fallout 4. You do not need other players. You do not need a matchmaking server. Yet, because Bethesda insisted on a server-side authentication for these microtransactions, your ability to access content you paid for is tied to the stability of their login servers. When the next-gen update hit, the servers were hammered. Predictable? Yes. Preventable? Absolutely. But the result was that players could not download the content they had just purchased. Or worse, the game would crash because it couldn't verify the assets on startup. On PlayStation specifically, this manifests as the 0KB glitch, or simply the inability to access the menu. Think about the absurdity of this. You buy a backpack in a single-player game. The server hiccups. Now, not only do you not have the backpack, but your entire mod load order might shuffle, or your menu grays out. This is a case study in why always-online elements in single-player games are a disaster waiting to happen. It introduces a point of failure that benefits only the corporation, never the player. And let's not forget the grayed out menu bug. After the update, thousands of players found the mods and Creation Club options simply inaccessible. Grayed out, no error message, just denial of service. The fix? For many, it involved deleting the entire game, scrubbing save data, and reinstalling without the DLC to isolate the corruption. This is not It Just Works. This is It Just Breaks. If your business model relies on selling micro-content, the one thing that must be bulletproof is the delivery mechanism. By failing here, Bethesda isn't just annoying players, they are demonstrating that they can't maintain the storefront they forced into the game. The issue runs deeper than just connection errors. It exposes the fragility of the creation engine when bolstered by external server checks. The game is trying to call home to verify that you own the rights to a specific shade of power armor paint. If that call fails, or if the data packet is malformed because the server is under load, the game logic panics. It turns a stable offline experience into a fragile online dependent one. And for what? To ensure that no one pirated a $2 weapon skin. The anti-piracy measure here is more destructive to the user experience than piracy ever could be. Now, let's pivot to Fallout 76 and the monetization of nostalgia. While Fallout 4 was burning down on PlayStation, Bethesda saw an opportunity in Fallout 76. The TV show was a hit. Interest in New Vegas was at an all-time high. So, they released the Mojave Bundle. Let's unpack this. The bundle includes a few camp items, some outfit skins, and a power armor paint job. The price? 3,000 atoms, or roughly equivalent to $30 if you're buying the currency packs. $30. Let's be clear about what you get for that money. You get a few digital assets. Now compare that to the source material. You can buy Fallout New Vegas, the entire game with all its DLC. Hundreds of hours of RPG mastery written by Obsidian for $20 at full price, often $5 on sale. Bethesda is charging more for a skin of a ranger outfit than the game the ranger outfit comes from. This is where the authoritative mask slips and the greed becomes naked. This pricing strategy isn't accidental. It anchors the value of nostalgia at a premium. They know you love New Vegas. They know you want to roleplay as a ranger, and they are banking on the fact that new fans from the TV show don't know the difference in value. Let's look at the inflation here. Microtransaction prices have been creeping up for years, but this is a vertical leap. This bundle represents everything wrong with modern SAA gaming. It prioritizes the monetization of legacy over the preservation of it. Instead of remaking New Vegas, they skin it and sell it back to you in chunks. Here is the cynical interpretation, and it is simpler than you think. They are testing the waters. If people pay $30 for a bundle of skins, that becomes the new floor. The community reaction was furious. Even the dedicated Fallout 76 whales, the players who usually defend the game, called this predatory. It highlights a disconnect between Bethesda, the developer, and Bethesda, the publisher. The developer is struggling to get textures to load on a PS5. The publisher is efficiently designing $30 macrotransactions to exploit a TV show's popularity. This isn't just about expensive skins, it's about value perception. When you price a cosmetic bundle higher than a full Game of the Year edition title, you are effectively saying that the visual aesthetic of the game is worth more than the gameplay itself. It is the ultimate triumph of style over substance, of monetization over mechanics. Let's zoom out. This isn't just about 3 isolated incidents. First, the PlayStation license revocation. Second, the Creation Club authentication failure. Third, the predatory pricing of the Mojave bundle. There is a pattern here. As industry veterans and critics have pointed out, there seems to be a fundamental mismanagement of resources. We are seeing a company that is incredibly wealthy, backed by Microsoft, yet unable to perform basic quality assurance on a 10-year-old game. Why the silence? Why did it take weeks to acknowledge the PlayStation issue? Here's the theory. Every time Fallout 4 breaks or Skyrim glitches, the path of least resistance for the consumer is to migrate to the newest, supported product. Fallout 76, Starfield. By leaving the legacy titles in a state of disarray or updating them into unplayability, they inadvertently push the active user base toward the live service models, where the $30 bundles live. I want to believe it's just incompetence, but when the incompetence always results in the consumer losing rights and the company asking for more money, it stops looking like an accident and starts looking like a strategy. The next-gen update for Fallout 4 didn't add significant content, it added monetization hooks and broke the existing ones. That tells you everything you need to know about the priority list. They had a golden opportunity here. The TV show brought in millions of potential new fans. All they had to do was ensure the legacy titles worked. Instead, they greeted these new players with broken licenses, server errors, and exorbitant microtransactions. They took a victory lap and tripped over their own shoelaces. So, where does this leave us? If you are on PlayStation, you are fighting for the right to use content you bought a decade ago. If you are a modder, you are fighting an authentication server that doesn't work. If you are a 76 player, you are being asked to pay the price of a full game for a handful of cosmetics. This is not how you treat customers. This is not how you maintain trust with a community that has kept your game alive for a decade. The modders fixed your game for free. The community built the wikis. The fans kept the lore alive during the long droughts. And Bethesda, if somehow you're listening, it's not too late. You could fix the entitlement IDs properly, not with a workaround, but a real fix. You could make Creation Club items verify offline. You could price your bundles in reality, not in a fantasy land of inflation. You won't, but you could. Thanks for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments, especially if you're a PlayStation user who lost their DLC. I want to see the numbers. Let me know if you've experienced similar situations with other games. And remember, in gaming, just like in Fallout, war never changes, but maybe if we speak up loud enough, we can change the industry.